Hello and welcome to a continuation of Beowulf. We'll start right away with fit number 2. In Gromera's translation, line 120, we return to a description of Grendel. Unhallowed wight, grim and greedy, he grasped at times 30 of the thanes. Now keep this number in mind. The Beowulf poet wants us to, because a little bit later we're going to learn that, we're going to be told by Hrothgar that Beowulf has the strength of 30 thanes, 30 men in his hand grip, and so that makes Beowulf the match of Grendel the monster. Line 145, thus ruled unrighteous and raged his fill, one against all, until empty stood that lordly building, and long it bode so. 12 years tide till the trouble he bore, he being Hrothgar. Okay, so the Danes are kicked out of their own hall, at least in the evenings, because darkness is the realm of Grendel, for 12 years. Okay, so we switch in fit number 3 across the sea. It's not a very big sea if you look at the map. Sweden, the home of the Yats, the home of Beowulf and his king Hygelac. That's the southern part of Sweden, and so that dips down almost to the mainland of Northern Europe, and the mainland of Northern Europe itself juts up in a peninsula now known as Denmark, and that's where Hrothgar is having this trouble. That's where Herod is. So it's not very far for Beowulf to sail. So. Line 195, we pick it up with Beowulf hearing of this horrible monster. This heard in his home Hygelac's thane. That's Beowulf. His uncle and king is named Hygelac. Great among the Yats of Grendel's doings. Yon battle king, said he, line 200, far o'er the swan road he fain would seek this noble monarch who needed men. What the heck is a swan road? What kind of a road would a swan go on? Well, a swan is a seabird, okay, or is a aquatic fowl at any rate. So, in fact, this is a kind of a riddle. What is the riding? Literally, it's not road. Road. Our word road is actually what's called an accusative cognate for the verb riding. To ride. What is it you ride on? A riding thing, or a road. And so this is a kind of a riddle. What is the road of the swan? What is the riding of the swan? The answer? The sea. Okay, so this tendency of using these boiled down riddles or metaphors, you may want to call them, these compound words that are known as kennings, a particular kind of metaphor, that is very typical of this poetry. Yon battle king, said he, far o'er the swan road he fain would seek the noble monarch who needed men. Okay, so he jumps into a ship with 12 warriors, and the first person that sees them is the first person who's supposed to see them. You don't run a kingdom in these days without some protection, and so you leave an outpost. You leave somebody up on the highest point to watch the shore for any armed invasion. And so he sees one. He sees all of these Yats, well armed, coming to the shore, so he rides down on his horse to meet them. This is a passage that to which Tolkien paid particular attention, and Thomas Shippey, a great Tolkien scholar and a great Beowulf scholar, actually, he describes Tolkien as copying this scene because he sees it as a part of the noble mind, the mind of the noble warrior who is absolutely obedient to his king with an absolute set of rules, but given much more discretion than perhaps a modern soldier would have. The idea, the job of a warrior is to take the measure of his opponent or the people that he meets. And so you have to make a split-second decision. Is this a guy we can trust or not? And he does, and Tolkien echoes that in the scenes with the riders of Rohan, who do the same thing. They have to make a judgment as to whether to trust Aragorn. Okay, so But this is Beowulf now, and so this is the first we hear of the um, of the Coast Guard. Line 230. Now saw from the cliff a Scylding clansman, a warden that watched on the waterside. Wonder seized him to know what manner of men they were. And this is what he says about what manner of men they are. He says to Beowulf, line 247, a greater ne'er saw I of warriors in the world than one of you. That is the tall one over there, Beowulf, yon hero in harness. So Beowulf explains who he is. We are by kin, the opening of fit number 4. Line 260. We are of kin the clan of Yats, and Healach's own hearthfellows we. To folk afar was my father known, noble atheling, Edgethale named. Beowulf, in modesty perhaps, but for whatever reason he does not give his name, but he more or less does the same thing by telling who he is, by telling his clan and his father. I am the son of Edgethale. Okay. And then he announces his mission. What are you doing here? That's the next thing that you have to say. So 278, he says, to Hrothgar I in greatness of soul would succor bring. I would like to help Hrothgar win the day. Okay, to get rid of Grendel. Okay, so they ride to the hall to Heorot, and here's another passage copied by Tolkien, when Tolkien describes Edoras, the compound where Theoden rules. He describes it in actually literally the same line. He takes line 311 and translates it into modern English, and that is his description of Edoras. Here it is, beginning in line 308. Till the hall they saw, broad of gable, bright with gold. That was the fairest mid folk of earth, of houses neath heaven, and gleam of it lightened o'er lands afar. That's the line that Tolkien translated it. The gleam of it went far over the lands. Okay. Fit number 5, beginning line 320. Now, the warrior, as we said before, he shows great insight into seeing the nature of Beowulf and that he could be trusted. And they, again, reflect on this. His job is to keep armed warriors away, or at least to spread the alarms. You know, to arms, to arms! The Yats are coming. The Yatish are coming. But he doesn't. He lets them go. Okay. But we get to the next step, and the lieutenant, the right-hand man of King Hrothgar, a thane known as Wulfgar, he takes the next step, and he says, put your weapons here. You don't walk into the king's palace. This isn't the White House where you can walk in unannounced and make it all the way into the living quarters while the Secret Service are using old technology. Leave your weapons here. Come and see, and I'll go see what Hrothgar says. Okay, so Wulfgar goes to Hrothgar, and in fit number 6, this is what Hrothgar says, line 372 or so. I knew him of yore, says Hrothgar. In his youthful days, his aged father was Edgethale named, and that matches what we know. Beowulf said, I'm Edgethale's son. But this is something else that Hrothgar has heard, line 380. He has 30 men's heft of grasp in the grip of his hand. Okay, so that connects up with what we earlier heard about Grendel seizing 30 thanes at a time. Line 420. Beowulf launches into a description of his former deeds. This is known as a speech known as a beot, a boast, but it's not a boast in the vainglorious sense. That would be yilp, the empty boast. Okay, the vainglorious boast. It meant only to elevate my status. Okay. So that is a reflection of pride, okay, in the negative sense. This Beot, its job is, remember, he's craving the boon of fighting Grendel, and to show that he's qualified to do so, he tells what he's already done, line 418. themselves had seen me from slaughter come, blood-flecked from my foes, where 5 I bound. So I fought our people's enemies, beat 5 of them, and tied them up. And that wild brood worsted. In the waves I slew Nikors, these water monsters. I killed these water monsters. And then he gets to the point about Grendel, line 435. More I hear that monster dire in his wanton mood of weapons recks not. Henceforth I shall scorn brand or buckler to bear in the fight, but with grip alone must I front the fiend. Okay, so I heard that Grendel fights without weapons, so I will do the same. I will meet him without weapons. Okay. Well, that's a good place to stop. We'll start with fit 7 in that's VII in Roman numerals in our next exciting episode. So we'll see you then. Thank you for your patience.